In any game of strategy, moves and countermoves are made following a set of rules until one player is declared the winner, similar to that of war, except in war, there truly are no winners. This documentary will bring you inside the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan by the United States in World War II, highlighting the pride and accomplishments as well as the devastation on both sides of this world-changing event. World War II officially began in 1939 and lasted 6 years, ending on September 2, 1945, following the unleashing of two of the most devastating bombs the world has ever seen. Although the decision to use such power was widely controversial, we must understand the players and events leading up to it. In 1939, German leader Adolf Hitler invaded Polish territory and began to create laws for Germany that violated international treaties. These actions were viewed by Britain and others as clear intent to take control of Europe, so in late August, Britain drew a hard line, establishing a date by which Germans must withdraw from Poland or face war. When Germany failed to remove their troops, they were launched into a full-scale war on September 1st against Britain and France, the original Allied forces, beginning a long period of death and destruction. With Hitler's close ties and similar objectives to Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, Italy soon joined the German forces. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan shared the same vision for dominance over Asian territories. Seeing an opportunity for collaboration, Japan's ruler, Hirohito, soon signed on to the Tripartite Pact with Germany and Italy, securing assistance should any of them become involved in a large-scale war, and established the foundation of the Axis powers. As Japan became more invested in the war, they grew more concerned with the threat the United States posed if they entered the war, having been a formidable enemy of Germany in the First World War. After the United States passed the Vincent Act in June of 1940, which called for an increase in its number of naval tonnage by 11% and an addition of 4,500 new planes, the Japanese believed this gap in industrial capacity would prove too robust to challenge in the future. Japan believed if war with the U.S. was inevitable, their best strategy would be to draw the U.S. into war on their terms ahead of the U.S. naval expansion. After analyzing their most promising strategies, Japan decided to focus their air power in an attack of U.S. naval ships and aircraft in Pearl Harbor, a U.S. naval base located in Honolulu, Hawaii. On the morning of December 7, 1941, the surprise attack was launched. In total, 5 battleships were sunk, 450 aircraft were destroyed, and roughly 1,200 of America's finest men were lost. The Japanese believed a demonstrative attack on the U.S. would damage their military strength and the morale of the citizens and soldiers of the U.S., discouraging them from entering the war. However, this attack served only to anger the U.S. and invigorate their resolve, resulting in the U.S. declaration of war on the Axis powers the very next day. After more than 3 years of conflict with the U.S. and other Allied forces, Germany surrendered the Second World War on May 7, 1945. Japan, however, refused. Too many resources had been drained to unconditionally surrender at that point. The Japanese believed they must prove themselves a worthy opponent, whereby, even if they surrendered, they could command the terms. Even as the Japanese continued to drain their resources, they would not surrender or lose sight of their goal. The U.S. government, growing weary of the war, became eager to bring it to an end. Although much stronger than Japan, the United States was losing resources and the lives of many troops of their own. Because of Japan's determination, however, the U.S. realized the Japanese surrender would not come easily. The U.S. believed any strategy to defeat Japan must bring Japan to its knees. As the United States began to expound on the early nuclear research being conducted by the Germans, it was realized how the excess energy released when radioactive particles split held the power to annihilate an entire city in just one small capsule. When dropped, it could destroy everything for miles. This research and development program, known as the Manhattan Project, led to the U.S. construction of the first atomic bomb. Finally, in July of 1945, the United States conducted the Trinity test, the first official test of the atomic bomb in New Mexico, and forever bookmarked one of the most amazing manipulations of power known to man. Soon after, a U.S. council known as the Interim Committee met to discuss the nation's war options. With the plans and testing for the atomic bombs complete, it became a very viable option. The U.S. Council weighed carefully the targeted destruction and loss of life this bomb could inflict on the Japanese against that of the loss of life and resources the U.S. would face if it were to drag this war on conventionally. With the relentless war looming ahead, the decision was finally made to bring about a promising and decisive end. Ultimately, two separate bombs were constructed. One bomb, named Little Boy, made largely from uranium, was narrow and compact. The other bomb was made from plutonium and was a plumper, larger bomb, which earned it the name Fat Man. With the bombs complete, the U.S. determined the parameters for the cities to be bombed, choosing medium-sized cities with large industrial complexes and critical Japanese military bases. Ultimately, the cities were selected: Hiroshima, Kokura, Niigata, and Nagasaki. They all fit the requisites. Knowing the destructive power of these bombs, President Truman wanted to use them only as a final solution, hopeful they would never be used. On July 26, 1945, Truman issued the Potsdam Declaration, which offered an unconditional surrender to Japan and explained that Japan would suffer great losses and destruction if they declined to surrender. The Japanese, however, doubled down. Believing all other options would only extend the war and loss of life and resources, the U.S. decided the bomb would be dropped. On the morning of August 6, 1945, Colonel Paul Tibbets Jr. was ordered aboard his aircraft, the Enola Gay, and sent on a mission to Hiroshima, Japan. Aboard the plane was the first atomic bomb to ever be used in warfare. At 8:14 a.m., Little Boy was dropped. After a long 53 seconds, the awe-inspiring power of the first atomic bomb was unleashed, destroying 4.7 square miles of the city, leaving 78,000 dead and 51,000 injured. The event that shocked the world did not, however, stifle Japan. They remained steadfast, refusing a surrender. Without hesitation, another plane was loaded, this one carrying Fat Man, and ordered to Nagasaki. At approximately 11 o'clock a.m. on August 9th, 1.5 square miles of Nagasaki were destroyed. Though a much smaller impact zone, it was devastating all the same. Another 35,000 were killed, and 60,000 more were injured. Fearing the U.S. wouldn't hesitate to drop a third bomb, Hirohito announced that Japan would surrender from World War II on August 15th. As the U.S. celebrated, the world sat speechless at the destruction just two bombs could initiate. In all, World War II left an estimated 25 million soldiers dead. Had the war continued for just one more year, likely thousands upon thousands of additional soldiers would have been killed, along with the destruction of countless more cities, their infrastructure, and their culture. World War II needed to end. With the United States dropping of the atomic bombs, many lives were spared, resources salvaged, and normal daily life resumed for many families. Though the tactic provided a war-end victory for the United States, the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki proved devastating to Japan for years to come. Two cities vanished beneath large clouds of dust and fragments, and the earth there tainted by the nuclear radiation. Along with the initial loss of life, radiation poisoning and cancer deaths following the aftermath nearly doubled the death toll in the coming months and years. In total, an estimated 200,000 Japanese men, women, and children lost their lives, and over 111,000 suffered extensive injuries from the greatest use of force the world had ever seen. The world watched with closed eyes and sorrowful hearts the tale of these two devastated cities. Even as the world suffered a loss of innocence, society was forever shaped by this global event. A new age in warfare was ushered in. While the threat of advanced nuclear technology continues, however, weapons of such a caliber still command great respect as the world remembers the devastation unleashed from the atom that changed the world, in a time where the line between triumph and tragedy was forever blurred.